Okay. She's really good natured. She's very sweet.
Oh, it's one.
All right, we got 3 minutes to go.
We're good. Oh my gosh. I would be glued.
Do we have any handouts or anything?
Let's see here. Let's print up Sandra's. Sandra. Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Right. She is missing.
And you sent something, Judy? Church something?
Oh, it's just the link. Yeah.
Well, we gotta call the meeting to order.
Yeah. The owl is on. And. So it's a.
Thank you. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I'm calling this meeting to order. It's a special meeting of Crystal Lake Township Board. It's Friday, July 28th, 2023. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call when you're ready.
Northway.
Here.
Pop.
Here.
Ferris.
Here.
Nielsen.
Here.
Van Meter. Here.
Do we have adoption of the agenda as it stands, or are there any amendments? All right, all those in favor of, well, do I have support for adopting the agenda as it stands?
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? At this point, is there a conflict of interest anyone wishes to declare? Let the record show there is none. Public comment at this point.
It's glad to be here.
Thank you. Why don't I turn it over to the people who called this meeting? Who would like to start out the discussion?
I can. For a number of years, the two churches have been proactive where I work. Have been proactive about safety and security of the building and the people in it. Even when the pastor and I are there together, the doors are all locked. We have a buzzer at the main entrance, and then we have one of those, I don't know, Wi-Fi, it's not really Wi-Fi, doorbells, where you have to have the ringer within a certain distance of the button. There's no app on the phone, any of that kind of thing. So that if somebody comes when the doors are locked, if they don't have a key, they can get in. Church Mutual Insurance provides our insurance for the building, and they've for a number of years, sent us information about safety and security, and I apologize for not bringing the link with me. I will send that to everybody. But one of the things that they provide is this little, it's about this big, and it's a whole thing. If you have an armed intruder, it's all connected to 911. And we're only supposed to pull it if there's an armed intruder. We have one in my office and we have one in the sanctuary. Churches have been targets. You know, as well as government offices and everywhere. So the trustees are working on pulling together a safety and security manual. I've been to church administrator seminars and meetings, and we've had guest speakers from the police department, the fire department over the years. I mean, talking all the way from the doorbell to bombings and what we're supposed to do if there's a bomb. And frankly, I have been uncomfortable being here on Fridays with the doors unlocked when I'm here by myself. Maybe I'm overreacting, but it's been preached to me all these years. And so I think that's what initiated some of the discussion. One of the things the church is doing is gonna get new doors so that we have a better idea of who has keys. And I think initially, one of the things we need to do here is change the code. I mean, I think it's been the same for a lot of years. And maybe look at getting some sort of doorbell so that when we're here by ourselves, especially when the treasurer and deputy treasurer are here dealing with money by themselves. So those are my thoughts, and that might have initiated the whole issue. It's gonna be an ongoing thing too. We're not gonna fix it today. Relating to elections, we don't even know beyond the fact that we have to have during the 9-day in-person voting, we have to have an area in our building that we can lock up the machines and the ballots and the laptop and everything beyond just locking the building. So that's something we've got to pursue too. And Brian is looking into getting an estimate for taking out those folding doors there and putting a door that we can lock, and so that we can put everything in there relating to elections.
I've looked over Sandra's suggestions and I do agree with them, door code especially. Change that quarterly.
I'm sorry, what was that? The first one you agreed with?
I'm looking at Sandra's list that she had put together. And
So you said you do agree with keeping the doors locked and posting a phone number for entry?
and that could be, if you're comfortable here, maybe you don't do that. But if we're here, that might be something that we do. Especially with election workers, things like that. I know Sandra's going to be working, spending a lot of hours here, processing. Starts out with address changes, goes from there. When Judy and I are here, it would probably be a good idea to post our cell phones so they can call us directly to gain entrance. I do like, Brian and I discussed replacing the wood door between the vestibule and the hall. And maybe have glass so we can see the other person on the other side, and maybe have like a small counter or a place that tax payments can be slipped through. Maybe that's on the side if it can't be in a door, and have like a small counter in the vestibule for somebody to at least maybe put the purse down, write out a check, things like that. I think people would be very understanding once they understood that it is for security purposes. I don't think we're gonna get any complaints about not having full access to this room. And as you go to other newer township halls, they have that set up. When you first walk in, there's a small area for that person to be, and then they can be directed or whatnot into the building if necessary, or just do the business there.
Both the city and the county have, and it could be because of COVID. But they have total glass now with the clerks. There's just the little slack duty there, and you talk through the glass.
Well, the high school has a situation like that too. You go to the front door at the high school and you push a button and
Okay.
they know who's there, they push you in or not. And, I get it. But it'd be nice to have Brian here though, so he can comment on
I agree.
how we might do it. Might be nice to have Tom here. Tom's got real strong feelings about the security of this building anyhow. Once you get to that door, especially if you've got a gun, you've got control of the building, because that door is the only other exit route. And, you know, this is just not a compatible thing for 2023 security.
Right.
Anymore. So we get-
Right, like we discussed, I think it'd be a great idea to make that a door again, and maybe make it exit only, so nobody can gain entrance from the outside.
Maybe we think in terms of changing the building.
That's always a possibility, but dollars to dollars, these are small changes that can be made now. We have a major election next year, and changing the building between now and then is not feasible.
No, but a plan could be laid out
Yeah.
with adequate time,
Yes.
and hard to do on an emergency meeting on a Friday morning.
Right, but a whole plan for a new building is going to take years.
But it's something we've been putting off time and time again. You keep on pushing the planning commission because they don't have a program, but they don't have much feedback from the board either.
You started down the list, you wanna continue?
I'll just say that I think there's two concerns here. One is safety of either elected officials has been expressed, and the safety of staff has been expressed.
Safety what? Staff?
Safety of our staff, our deputy clerk. I mean, there's been concern about safety issues. So I think those have to be addressed. I don't know, it may have been precipitated by our guests out on our little porch area, I don't know. But once it's been raised, I think we have to address it. The second issue that was raised in several emails I received from people is that some concern about this building being breached. And I don't know by people who might, I'm not sure why they would breach it, but if they did, we ought to be concerned about what data is available that maybe they shouldn't have access to, or, I mean, is it appropriate to have people wandering around, you know, inside? And we probably, need to address that. And also, has there been any evidence of any breaching? Does anybody here know that people have gotten in here, without our knowledge?
How about you in your 45 years? Has anybody broken in here?
I know, I'm not aware of that at all.
I'm not aware of any. Anybody else?
Well, I'm just saying it's probably appropriate to, I mean, security, safety of our staff and our people is the most important thing, but to go along with that, we don't want people entering the hall without a good reason. So I think that an obvious thing would be, I think that can be done right away would be a motion detector attached to our cameras, maybe improve the camera views. A motion detector that is linked to an iPhone So that not that someone has to be carrying something that notifies them that there's an unwanted, or that there's a visitor approaching the hall or trying to get in, and we could see, but you would give a time frame. So if somebody did break in, we found out about it the next day, we don't have to scroll through 24 hours of video. We'll know it happened at 1:32. We can go right to 1:32 and find out.
Well, how does the one we have now work?
I don't know. I don't know that for sure, but I don't think it alerts anybody,
Right.
because I think somebody had to scroll through hours of video to find out this woman outside.
It does, nobody scrolled through it 24 hours. It does alert you. It has a little blip when it detects motion. And so he's able to go straight to that
But
and then view it.
I had to tell him to do that, though. He wasn't.
Right, we don't have a 24-hour monitor company, right?
I don't know. That's not my,
Right.
IT is not my thing.
Might just be a good idea to start out with the, sort of the state of the art in terms of, the security systems. Instead of the five of us, I don't think that much combined knowledge about it. Maybe there are some really good options, and especially something to take into consideration of that course.
Anyway, I think we could make improvements there, and I also think another exit door would be helpful. Emergency basis, and probably right out front would be a good idea. But I think we had to do something when we can't just ignore elected officials concerned about their safety and staff concerned about their safety. And so I think we had to address that today. And take some steps in the near future to ensure they're safer. And I think the last idea might be to have if somebody's in here, I mean, to have a door they could see through, it could buzz people in. In order to get in here, you have to buzz it, but also have a buzzer if necessary to call 911, or an easy way to call 911. To alert the sheriff's department if there's a concern.
Like something you'd call a panic button, maybe?
Yeah, a panic
Or a
button.
panic cord, whatever okay, so that's another suggestion.
Well, it's, you could, I mean, you can sit there, pull on your iPhone and dial 911, but then you have to go talk to somebody, and if there's a panic button, the sheriff's department knows that the purpose of it is there's something really going on right now, and don't, get right over here if you can. But I think the idea of replacing that door would be a good idea, some sort of glass see-through thing, and people have to, and they can put stuff through it if necessary, documents if you want to drop off, but they have to be buzzed in. And none of this is going to stop anybody who's really determined to get in. It's not going to work. But at least it's being addressed.
I took it upon myself to call the Brentford Police and Benzie County to ask some things. For example, what are our options if somebody was like to attend this meeting this morning and they're packing? What can we do about it? And he said, well, basically, if you have to have a policy one way or the other. We needed to consider something about how are we going to approach security. And he told me that he's got a program called Brace that he uses for various situations. It can be 10 minutes or it can be half an hour or whatever you want. To assess the security, discuss the options and stuff like that. It might be a good starting point to begin with people who know about it instead of the five of us.
It's a good idea.
And by the way, we don't have that they're aware of, we don't have a policy regarding pack up, concealed weapons. And we have to think about that. So that and it should be the notification to the public that that's the policy. There aren't any guns allowed.
We are an open carry state also. So they
if you go to a hardware store, I know a particular one, and that gentleman open carries as he works. But there again, we still need to have an emergency policy. Because if somebody has nefarious reasons for being here, they're not gonna carry about the sign on the door. So I think we should explore Rob's program. Definitely.
I'm sorry, you dropped off at the last,
I think we need to explore Rob's program. Absolutely.
the breaks.
And one of the things that made the election workers uncomfortable was the whole open carry thing, because they are allowed to come in to the precinct. It didn't make us feel warm and fuzzy.
So if I were gonna sum this up so far, unless I'm interrupting anybody, what's our end goal? You mentioned staff and elected officials. How about property as well?
Well, yeah, but I
People and property?
think the end goal is to make the staff comfortable with their job, security. I mean, is to make them feel that's okay, they feel safe to come to work, do their job. If they don't feel safe, then they have to make a decision to, you know, no longer work here, or no longer be here, or feel comfortable being. You shouldn't come in here if you're gonna worry all the time about somebody coming in and hurting you if you're not safe.
So we're,
We can't prevent everything.
security measures for the comfort and safety of persons and property. How's that? That's our goal?
That's fine. That's one of our goals could be,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think persons is immediate, property is secondary.
I mean, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to sum it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think there must be, I don't know, I'm not inside here very often, but are there areas that we don't want the public to necessarily have access to all the time? Is there, do we have, I mean, maybe there isn't, I don't know, but. Or if somebody comes in and just rifles through everything and you got a mess on the floor, papers and everything else, we don't want that to happen. So-
Yeah, I don't think we allow that. But, I mean, do we have policy? Have we ever had that problem? Has somebody marched in and helped themselves to the files? People on the board have done that, but not on the public, I don't think. But yeah, it could happen.
And I think times have changed over the years. I mean, things seem more violent in the country and the world. But I think protecting the folks who are in here, as well as the security of the building and the property, I think we need to visit that.
Well, if I can, maybe a game plan might be a good time right now. Like number one, changing door codes. They had talked about, they brought up the Ring camera.
By the way, the code has been, that code for about a year. It changed, not that long.
Right, with the ADA door, it did change.
Okay.
And that was the first time since I know of. So,
Yeah, the only code I ever had was one, and I didn't get the recent one, never, if it was changed, which I thought it was when Mark Blackford was here.
His birthday.
And the code was 2446.
His birthday is
Yeah.
the only thing he could remember.
Pardon?
It was his birthday. It's the only
Right,
thing
that's
he
what I
could
understand,
remember.
but I'm not aware of any, I thought the code was changed at the door, but you know, I never knew what it was.
Well, that's why I asked everybody that I could, you know, do you have the code and who have you given it to, so that we could kind of get an idea of that. There was, and I'm not sure if this has been cleared up, but Sandra thought at some point there was somebody who arrived and let himself in, but that was a false rumor.
She looked at the video again,
right,
Yeah,
and
and
apparently he pushed the handicap button.
yeah, so that's, just didn't wanna get alarmed about something that didn't happen. I was here, I was holding office hours at that point.
But the gal loitering for several hours, couple hours. I don't know, I didn't watch the video, Sandra told me about it. I saw the pictures.
Do, you wanna go ahead with your suggestions?
Well, for the immediate, our immediate goals, maybe this next week, well, immediately, we could change the door code. That could be done probably today.
Do we also want a policy on who has that door code? Since right now it is a finite group, and I think we're trusting all the people that have it right now.
Right, I think staff is basically the only people in need of it. If he clips, they're working here, so maybe we could change the code, and then when they're finished, we can change it again. So at least they could have access to,
So you're saying elected officials,
staff, which means, to me, staff means employees, elected officials, deputies,
volunteers like Greg,
right?
Wright, he doesn't,
Oh,
You know, he's not really
basically
staff.
He's,
okay, so
Okay.
you do consider him. How about the UPS man?
no. No. Those men vary, and I don't think that's necessary. I don't consider them staff.
Okay, somebody did give the UPS man, so is that, whoever did, is that okay with you guys not to give him?
I didn't get
I
into
wasn't
it,
aware that he had it.
I think you told me he had it.
because I think Brian told me that.
Okay.
I didn't give it to him,
Okay, so no
I didn't
UPS,
give the code to anybody.
so is that the consensus?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's a important closed porch, I mean, UPS, they generally just leave it on my doorstep. I don't give them access to my home. So this ought to be good here, it's out of the rain.
Do we have the thing that precipitated this, I think, is somebody loitering there for 2 hours. Do we want a package left there, or do we say,
I think you have to leave, unless it becomes a problem, we're not getting our stuff, we can address that later, but. I'm not worried about somebody loitering there and opening up our UPS packages, how often do we get something?
Did anybody?
I don't know, you'd have to ask them.
Did anybody ever call the authorities about our friend?
Yes,
I believe that Brian did.
And
he shared the video with them, so they would have it. I don't know what the follow-up is, other than they are going to increase patrols in the area.
I believe that within 2 hours, we knew who she was and what her rap sheet was, and that she was homeless, she's no longer living with her husband and the child, that she was assigned to, if I understand correctly, to a rehab instead of jail, and that she walked away from rehab, and that's one of the weaknesses in our system. Nobody has really gone after her to pick her up. So whether the police are working on that now that they've been notified of it, I have no idea. Anything else besides changing the code?
Is the code the same at both doors? Or is that a dumb question? Because I always come in the handicap door.
I'm not even sure that you can unlock it from the handicap door, can you?
The code?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's how I. come
I
in.
thought it's only if we have the switch turned on that you can do that.
Mm-mm.
You can do it at any time.
That's
Okay,
how I come in.
doesn't it involve sort of like a little key?
I just punch in the code and it clicks up. I mean, I can hear it click and I open the door.
I think Brian was also talking about different locks, right?
I don't know.
I think on the upper door. And I don't know if we have the same lock on the side door. Okay, so I think he was wanting to replace those with something more substantial.
When we get the new doors.
Anything else?
We talked about changing the code initially. What about a bell, the doorbell, or put our phone number on the door and they can call and.
Yes, that should be immediate.
Start with those two things.
Yeah, I think maybe, looking a week or two down the road, we could look into what it would take to do something with this door right here.
Mhm.
You know, did Brian or somebody look at what we could get that allow it to see through and maybe buzz over the door from some position in the building, or not buzzing.
In those words, a week or two down the road, I'm leaving. I could stay until 9:30 and.
Thank you.
I hope
Yeah,
you
when
both-
they,
I hope
when
you
they called
both
this
were
meeting,
taken-
they asked him how long he could stay, and he said only till 9:30.
And I hope that, no votes will be taken in my absence.
We've all agreed, I don't know what Bill's leaving, so the consensus on the second thing, I mean, right now, we've only agreed to change the code.
Well,
So,
we don't need, we have a quorum, we can agree on anything we want.
that's true.
So, I mean, that's irrelevant, whether he's here or not.
I think it goes to protocol.
Well, I'd like to see him here, but if we feel that we want to proceed with this door thing, or take, rather than wait till 3 weeks for our next meeting, we can certainly agree to do that.
Yes, we can legally.
Right, the code on the door and the signs on the door are no cost, so we could do those.
Can we do that by consensus? Or do we have to?
No, we can do that by consensus.
And I believe Brian and I have started looking at some different doors. Coming up with some different ideas at the top there. I know it was discussed to use this window in Tom's office. I'm not sure if the placement is, there's a window between the vestibule and I'm not sure if the height works. For what? Like, a window that we could go, somebody could come in the ramp and then we could
Gotcha.
serve them there rather than up top.
It's pretty high.
And that's what I thought, and it'd be low for us to be working from the office here, so so I think we're gonna kind of focus on that area there. And probably should have Ryan look into that becoming an egress. And, right, so. All entrance.
So let's, can we go through a couple of scenarios, or am I rushing you? Are you done? Or you wanna continue with suggestions?
Those are my main, to start with, the primary things I think we should do. And then we can follow up with Rob Lazowski. And set a date at another time.
Would he be the only guest?
Well, that would be a start.
How about Grant? How about an expert in somebody who sells security stuff? Do we know everything that's products that are out there? I asked, for example, Brian, what it would take to have a buzzer to unlock the door. Do any of you know what it takes to have that?
No, that's what I mentioned. We should get Brian to look into how we can replace the door, and see through it and buzz people in. So I think he is the best person to.
But he doesn't I mean, he's not a security.
Right, but he can talk to security people, like he talks to contractors, electrical contractors and about the lighting outside. He can. start
Okay,
that
so
process.
have,
Take the
find
lead.
Brian to do it
Yeah,
instead of having a guy just come to Hartford.
right. I think we need somebody that can look at the big picture rather than just separate contractors. We need Brian to shepherd the whole thing through.
If he's willing, of course.
If he's willing.
Right, and that will, somebody else will volunteer.
I don't know about buzzer systems because the church, when the church was built, they had gazillions of children and huge Sunday school classes, so they had the big ringer like schools do, the old schools, in 2 different places in the building. So when our buzzer system was put in for the front door, the electricians tied into that buzzer system. Of course, one of them's right outside my office, and when it gets pushed, I know it. But that's why I don't know, how much that costs for just a separate buzzer.
That pops the door,
Pardon?
that would open the door. Yeah,
I don't know if I feel secure with that, because if I'm sitting at my desk and the buzzer goes. I still have to go and see who it is, I mean, I'm not gonna, so.
Right, but at least you have a choice. I mean, if somebody's buzzing, you want to be able to see who it is. Maybe from across the road, you can do that. And you don't have to walk too far. I mean, the buzzer, there could be a couple of buzzers right here, right at the desk here.
yeah, it brings up like your panic buttons or cords, where are you gonna put those?
Well,
In each office, in the bathroom, and
Well, I think reasonably, you could just put one out here. I mean,
it has to be also someplace where it won't accidentally get pulled. So we had to think about it at the church. Like I'm sitting at my computer, it's just kind of right here on the wall, so the cleaning crew won't hit it. Stuff like that, but that's just for an armed intruder.
yeah, can you guys tell me, the scenarios you picture? Give me some examples of the harms that you imagine.
I don't know,
Based on like other people's, I mean, they come after a judge, they come after, I don't know,
what
in a
happens
school, is it indiscriminate? I mean, did the 13-year-old boy or 16 at Newtown, I mean,
all that matters is the person who's sitting here, whether it's in this building or another building, if they don't feel safe, that's enough. No reason. You don't have to ask them why.
Right.
I mean,
I'm trying to get at implementation to solve our fears. So, you know, I'm just looking for, I mean, I'm thinking, how do I know somebody comes to the door, I don't know who that person is. So I'm gonna buzz them in, or I'm gonna say, no, you're not allowed in, because I
Don't
don't
just
know you.
automatically buzz them in.
Right,
You have to talk to them and find out who they
so
are.
it's
and
not
what they
just
want.
looking at them, we're gonna talk to them.
Yeah,
And
We've
then if they
had-
say, I'm gonna pay my taxes,
you can say you can slip your payment through the door.
okay?
or in the
And how
Dropbox
about if,
outside.
I wanna talk to you about the cemetery and look over which plots I wanna buy?
You would have to be here.
How do I know who this guy is, though?
well,
And
you-
that's up to you.
for 50, hundreds of years, this Township Hall has been here, we haven't had trouble. Now, in recent years, I guess, all over the country, it seems like there's a lot more animosity, or there's a lot more concern about people breaking in and harming other people, and there's more and more people don't feel safe anymore. And we don't know, I don't know why they don't feel safe sometimes. I mean, I used to live in Chicago. I would walk all over the place. I wouldn't go back to Chicago now, and the Minnesota Mile and other areas that I used to feel very safe in. It's not safe anymore. So the world's changing.
Right.
And
And
I
I'm
don't
just trying
know.
to figure out how we solve that.
There is no solution, really. All you can do is mitigate it. And these are steps to mitigate it, but there's nothing to stop somebody who wants to break in here, to smash the door in or break a window and get in and harm somebody in here. We can't stop that. We've had plenty of incidences all over the country, people breaking into kindergarten classes and schools, and we can't stop. There's no.
Right, so I have 2 people that have come in here and been threatening to me. So I see them on the door and I go, you can't come in, right? Is there any liability for that?
Well,
I don't know.
That's what I do.
They're
at the
gonna say,
church.
I didn't do anything. This woman down here, she comes to the door and rings, do I let her in? She didn't break any laws. She was littering and loitering.
Right, but
I don't know. I'm asking.
if you feel threatened, you should call 911 or use the panic button. If you're concerned for your safety, you do something to make yourself feel safe.
One time at church, I was working late, and we have Celebrate Recovery on Wednesday nights. And a person that, he was probably 6'4" or 6'5", real scruffy looking. The doors were all locked. And he knocked and wanted, because that was before we had the buzzer on my end of the building. He wanted to come in, and I said, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to wait until more people arrived for Celebrate Recovery, and I didn't let him in.
Now, that's a private church and so forth. I'm just
Yeah.
asking, am I allowed to just say, I don't like the looks of you?
Yeah, if you feel, if your safety's threatened, yeah, you're allowed to do what you want to protect yourself.
Do you mind if we run that by the lawyer?
No, everything, lawyers will tell you.
No,
Totally
I
different
think,
thing.
I think if I said, I don't like the looks of that person, and I called 911, I don't think the sheriff's gonna appreciate that.
I think.
Now, if he's, you know, if he's doing something specific,
They aren't gonna question you. If you say you're
Right.
concerned about your health, they're gonna come. They have to. So it's up to you, the individual, and whether you, if you don't feel safe here in the building, you shouldn't be a supervisor then. That's part of the risk of being a supervisor.
I'm not the one who's bringing this up,
And I don't feel that we need to have our fears validated. The first defense is always common sense. So use common sense. Many townships do not have township halls. They work from home. There aren't specific policies down to the minute detail that will address any sort of circumstance that may arise. It's always going to be the thing that we never think of that happens. So instead of going off on these tangents and just discussing things like that, Amy, you are within your right. If you feel threatened by anybody, you contact the police. We're all going to do that. And I think you fear retaliation from that individual. And I cannot believe that a police officer or anybody's ever going to do that to you. So I think you can rest assured.
that's a ridiculous statement, I think. That's what we're just talking about. What do you mean you don't know, you don't think that that would happen? It's
I
like,
did not say that.
I'm sorry,
All right,
didn't you just say that you don't think that that would happen?
What we don't think of is what happens. That's
I'm
in
just,
my experience, what we don't think, so we have to plan as best we can for all known and unknown possibilities and go from there. So, where are we with our list?
you have change code,
Okay,
signs on door. Those are two things that are not involving money.
okay.
You said you wanted to explore with Brian,
Mhm.
making that an exit door. What doors needed to be replaced with what type of doors all around, and possibly changing this wooden door.
Right.
And then you said, have him explore all the possibilities for, I'm gonna call them gadgets, I don't know, procedures for, you know, do we have cameras, do we have buzzers, do we have trap doors?
Well, I would make a motion to do what you just said, and then add on there to have Brian also maybe consult with a security specialist about anything else we could do.
Yes, okay, so I don't actually think you need a motion, I think we're doing pretty well with just consensus, but it's up to you.
May I ask a question?
Yes,
How much cash is on hand?
Well, I do have the signs that say no cash on premises.
Okay, I didn't know. That's what I was
Right,
getting
no,
at.
I did that years ago, and I thought I think
Where are
there's. That's what I was thinking. I know there's one outside on the bulletin board, and I think there's one by my desk. So the policy is.
But not outside on the door?
Yeah, not on the doors, but on the bulletin, in the bulletin.
Oh, in
area.
the glass case.
I
glass-
think
okay,
it's
yeah.
super prevalent somewhere.
Right, and I discontinued the petty cash policy as soon as I came in 2013, so there isn't petty cash.
Okay,
We do still have a few taxpayers that insist on paying the cash. So when I do take it in, I immediately deposit it, so it's never left here. There was an instance where your neighbor came in, you received the tax payment, and then the following day, I was able to come in and deposit that.
I let her know that it was.
Right, and we put
Cash.
it in a secured location.
but it's not something that happens daily, that there's a lot of cash.
Oh, no.
So I think
Like
making that
three-
sign prevalent would
Three
be.
taxpayers, so 3, 4, so about 6 tax payments in a season out of the thousands, so it's very minute.
That's what the drug culture would be
Right.
looking for.
And I know the school at one point, the school down here in Frankfurt had
checks stolen by a couple of young students. Checks are replaceable. I mean, I have my policies that I follow, things that I would do. Chris Anthony and I have discussed it at length, you know, if you're in a situation, what you would do. But of course, we can't cover every possibility. So if we can add additional tools and resources and help us feel better.
I think it's a risk ratio. It's like you were saying, you know, what can we do to just mitigate?
So we do. Now, we apparently are about to order a door, right? Is what we discussed, would that alter that in any way, the door?
I think he was going to order the two, the steel doors, one here and then one on the side. He was going to order those. Maybe the order could include a third, but I don't think that's going, I don't know if we get a
No.
discount for.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna alter that. I'm just saying that
That's already in the works.
that's already in the works, but
Correct.
I thought there was some concern about if we didn't know the color, that we had to delay that, and I think the board voted to go ahead with this, and I presume that we don't need to vote on the color, that Brian would pick something that fits with the rest of the building. It's not gonna be purple or orange or something like that, so I don't think there should be a delay in ordering the door unless we decided today that because of security concerns, maybe we better put that on hold. And we might change that because of this discussion.
I think those are pretty secure doors. I don't know.
I think that's why he was doing it.
Right.
Right, I mean, but I'm just saying, if those doors offer more security, fine, but if there's something we can add to those doors
Right.
that would make it even more safer, then it might
Maybe-
make sense to wait.
Steel jams versus wood jams. And that might be something we want to consider. Because a large man with a foot to the door might break open a wooden jam versus a steel. That's a
Well,
good idea.
Brian sent an email saying he couldn't order it because we didn't know the color. And I think he needs to.
Quote has indigo.
Right, I was assuming they were going to be.
No, I don't think there was any assumption. I think that's what he said repeatedly to us, that it was something he thought the board should decide, but doesn't matter. It just would have,
Okay. Okay. this is good.
the risk ratio, again, you know what my biggest concern is that we lock ourselves down to a point where our freedom and our democracy are compromised. We're trying to serve people and nothing has happened in all the history that we know of. What's happened has happened from regular citizens that we're friends with and are in the building for public comment or to pay their taxes or whatever. And so I'm just saying, what's the risk here and what's the ratio? Yes, there's increased violence and so forth, but what measures are we taking that now we're putting a huge wall between us and the people we serve? And that might be an evil in itself.
So you think that the federal government and all that they do to mitigate risks is improper?
No, I didn't say anything like that. I agreed that mitigating, but that's why I asked for scenarios, what people were scared of.
Everybody and anybody. I don't think we have to be discriminatory and pinpoint people. Because
Not people, I'm saying, do you envision somebody coming in with concealed weapons and shooting you? Are you talking about their bombing like the Murrow building? Are you thinking that somebody gets mad because they can't vote and you tell them that they can't vote and then they play bumper cars with crashing into everybody out there? I know, that's why I'm bringing it up. So that's why I just wanted to,
But sweetheart, don't you think that you're gonna feel your instincts when that person comes to the door, you're gonna have the instincts? And maybe I don't want this person in here.
could
You
be,
have your own instincts.
could be, the two people from the public,
Right,
I would have never guessed that they would act that way.
sure.
So
you didn't have any instincts at that point that they were going to do whatever they were gonna
No,
do?
not at that point, but anyway.
I think what brought it to a head for me was that man that showed up at the church 3 different times when we were having events and just walked in and started eating. He was the one that was walking down the airport road. He was eventually arrested. His last name was Young, I think. And then the gal loitering. We don't have a good mental health system in place. And I'm not saying somebody's gonna walk in and start shooting me, or somebody's gonna bring a bomb in here. But there are people out there that unsettle me. The ones that are on drugs, have mental health issues. You don't know what's gonna trigger them.
We've had people show up drunk in the audience. I mean, do we kick those people out? I know you're sighing like this.
I'm
is
just,
ridiculous.
no, I'm not. I don't know how to explain how I'm feeling. And I think this whole thing started because I haven't felt comfortable being here by myself. I mean,
I identify with you.
And then we
I
need to
have
take,
people that have scared me right here in this hall.
well, we're taking the least invasive steps.
Right,
We're gonna
and we've
take
listed
The
those.
least invasive steps. But because people don't feel safe, we can't not do nothing. You know, in the old days, you could go into a hospital, into office buildings, and there was nobody there. You just walk in, and nowadays that's no longer true. And I couldn't believe what happened in Chicago. Every building in there, there's a security guard up front. I mean, it's just routine now. It didn't used to be that way. And now it
I
is.
hear ya.
There's security guards at Munson and everywhere else. So for whatever the reason is, people are not feeling safe. So we need to do something rather than just tell them to buy an armored vest or something.
Well, here's an example. At Board of Review, one of the persons says, I'm happy. If anybody comes in here and starts complaining and gets out of hand about paying their taxes, you guys all get down, I'll jump over the table and take care of it. The 4 of the rest of us were a little shocked at that. And so we actually talked about a scenario. If somebody came in here very agitated, that the last thing we were gonna do is confront him like this. That it would all be nicey nice. Nobody has to quickly turn over a table and hide behind it. And so that's what I'm talking about. What are people's fears? And what are the most likely scenarios? I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be bombed like the Edward Murrow building. I do think that there are gonna be people we know. That's usually who we get hurt by, are the people we
I
know.
think the elections, all 3 elections next year, but especially if the others ever set a date for the presidential primary. That's when we have the most frustrated people because they have to vote following party lines. And they don't want to just do that. Some of them don't want to even declare what party, and they get upset. But I think next year the elections are gonna be,
I know, I
I
wouldn't
think
let somebody get into
volatile.
it about saying, I know I'm putting my ballot in here. And I know you're not gonna count it. I know you've got a crooked machine here. I witnessed all that, yeah. So I understand, I do.
I just wanted to initiate the conversation. I'd like the 2 immediate things that we can do. And like I said, it's gonna be an ongoing process. I mean, we've gotta get a lot more information and. But I like that we're starting to talk about it,
Okay,
and that's what I wanted.
so everybody understands what I just said?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have anything else to add?
No, nothing further.
Can I just summarize again? We're gonna change the code. Can I work with you on that?
Yeah,
We are going to notify, the UPS man that he doesn't get it again, and we're gonna notify the staff members and the officials of what that is. Do we need a policy? Because that's something we didn't reach consensus on. Do we have a policy that says you're not allowed to give this out to anybody? Because the other code was given out to all sorts of people, the Marv Blackford one. It was given to Dean Michael, for example.
No, I think you give
He
it.
was not an
When you
employee.
give out the new code to the people you just talked about. you need
Okay,
to- you need
I'm-
to have
I'm
a
summarizing.
sentence-
Do you
a
agree
sentence
with
in there,
this?
A sentence in there says, do not give this out to anybody else. And if they
Okay.
violate it, then we change the code and we can be more aggressive in the future.
Okay, so I'll make that statement in the thing. We're gonna put signs on the door and you'll take care of that? And I don't know what the signs are gonna say.
Off the top of my head, I don't either, but when I'm here, I was gonna put that they could call the clerk's phone number.
Okay?
So I don't know if.
And then we're charging Brian at this point with looking into
Exterior and all of that.
this an exit door, possibly what to do about the window in the ZA's office. And that he should start consulting with somebody who sells products to kind of give us an idea overview. Is that anything else that I missed?
And at some point, I would like to have Rob Lozowski or whoever come and speak to us with the brace program or.
And I,
But
getting
that
back to
could
that,
come,
I was saying, should we include Grant? Should we include the sheriff? Because, you know, this guy doesn't patrol us.
Yeah,
The sheriff does. So maybe you work on that? Who the guest should be and who,
I can do that.
anybody else? Public comment at this point. Yes,
I think trying to use the window in the office that Tom and Jill use would be intrusive to them. It makes more sense to me that it would be this door if you move forward with that, because then you would be able to see who's approaching the door versus going around the corner and
Right.
looking
Right.
there.
Yeah.
I think it would be less intrusive. I can tell you the state office has changed. It used to be anybody could walk in and then you needed a state ID to get in. A lot of even once you got through the Constitution Hall and you got into the building, even our reception area, you had to come up, speak to the receptionist. It was partially glass. And then the staff person would come out, greet the person and let them in if the business warranted that. Sign of the times. I do think making the no cash on premises super prevalent, because that's what the drug they're looking for, right, is money.
So you think maybe if I put signs on the doors too, in addition
Yeah,
to,
just,
or-
cause I didn't even know it was there, and I'm pretty observant.
I didn't either.
maybe I'll make them bigger than
we have people that don't know to press the button, including me. They're still trying to unlock the door.
That
And
could
so
be
we're trying to train them that you have to, in order to get in that lower
know.
thing, you have to press the button. There's a sign right there that says.
But
press
it
the
can
button.
be altered, that we should,
Okay.
I know that there's a way to get that changed, we need to.
People are so bombarded with things to read
I
and
know.
signs. I've discovered the hard way that they don't see them.
I don't think too many people really read our bulletin board.
Obviously, I
agree to
didn't.
that, probably.
I'm sorry, could you state your name for the record?
Oh, Jill Marble.
She's saying, any other public comment? She mentioned something too. Do we want your signs to say no loitering? Because at this point, what was
We
that
don't
girl
have that.
guilty of?
Loitering, I mean,
Just wondering.
Do we need a sign for it to be a problem? I mean, to,
Well, we need to say all needles and everything else are supplied at the end of the parking. Really true.
Somebody told me that knows her, that she's probably just looking for a bathroom.
I'll say it.
Isn't that weird? So.
this has nothing to do with that, but when you say that. Two boys, probably 10 or 12 years old, came in one Friday. And they've been riding their bikes. They really wanted something to drink. And I said, I'm sorry. We don't.
We don't even
The
have
water.
potable water.
I know. Thinking in the back.
But I thought it was very creative of them to come as.
Board comment? All right,
Just that, you know, like Bill pointed out. The high school is very, I mean, the school system takes it seriously. Of course, a lot of schools have had shootings too, but with the city of Frankfurt and the county clerk's offices all protected by glass. I mean, I don't think we would be setting precedent working on our security.
any other board comment? It is 2 minutes to 10. I call this meeting, adjourn this meeting. Thank you so much for coming.
Speaking of the bathroom, I really wanted one at Interlochen.
Oh, that's what you do to go to the bathroom up there.
Starting to slow down the picture now.